So I am now going to introduce our next speaker, and this is David Woodhead. Now, this is kind of an interesting one because this is a fallen flag layout, and it's Craig Webb's layout. Craig Webb is a prominent O-scale and O-narrow gauge modeler in the Toronto area. Many of you may have heard of the Aberfoyle Railway, and Craig has been a lifelong member of that. Amazing layout, probably one of the best display layouts in North America. And but he also built a very nice On3 operating layout in his home, and we're going to talk about that today. Our presenter is Dave Woodhead. Craig's a little shy and didn't want to do a presentation on live presentation, so but he gave us permission to do this. And David took some terrific pictures of Craig's layout over the years. David is a narrow gauge fan since a family trip to the Black Hills in 1963. He currently models the freelance Madoc and North Hastings in ON3, set around the turn of the last century. As a professional musician, he's had the good fortune to work with many influential artists, including Stan Rogers, Oliver Schroer, Gil Scott-Heron, and David Sanborn, and traveled the world in search of narrow gauge. So it's always good to have a profession that helps your hobby along. So David, if you'd like to share your screen.
Yeah, I sure will. Yeah, here come. This is Craig Webb's layout. The cool thing about this layout that struck me the first time I saw an article in the Gazette, which was January, February, 98. And I didn't know Craig then. He lives in Hamilton, which is not very far from Toronto. But I went, oh my God, look at this. He's modeling Northern Ontario. You know, it's something that people around here can really relate to. He's really got captured the atmosphere, and he's just got one of those he had one of those magical basements that you step into and are transported into this other world. So Craig is, of course, still with us, and we'll see a picture of him soon. So when you step into that basement, this is what you see from the door. The town of Alendale is on the left. Algoma City is the lower level, straight ahead. Northern Mines is way off in the distance. And then we look to the side. This is Algoma City in the middle of the room with this sort of very pointy V-shaped peninsula going into the room. There's a fast clock on the far wall, and he did operate fast clock 12 to 1. So the operating sessions were 24 hours, which was 2 hours. And then looking back toward the door, we see some of our members here. There's Ernie. Ernie, we wish him well. He's not in very good health right now. And Dave Burrows, who also has a fantastic ON3 layout in the Hamilton area. So that's the original Alendale on the right, with the steamboat there, and that'll be our destination in a little while. So here's the track plan. The entrance, and I'll get my cursor happening here. Here's my, whoa, no, there, not yet. There's my cursor. Here's the door we came in, and we were looking this way with Alendale down here, Algoma City in the middle of the room with the pointy peninsula, and Northern Mines over here, and the town of Maple, which occupies this circle of track here in the middle. It's a switching area. So we will, here's Craig himself at Algoma City, which is the place we're going to start our little tour at. So I'll read a little bio here that I talked to Craig yesterday, and I got some great stories from him. Craig has been a model railroader since the 1950s. When he was a member of the Hamilton, Ontario O-Scale Club, which just recently disbanded, he told me. I didn't know that. So it had been around for a while, and I think there were only 3 or 4 members left, and they just called it quits very recently. There's another fallen flag, actually. In 1965, he visited the East Broadtop and caught the narrow gauge bug, and he began working on some small layouts in ON3. He was one of the key members of the Aberfoyle Junction O-Scale display layout, and that's something you can Google and find some great YouTubes of, including one of mine, actually, that I shot just last December before they dismantled it. It's just called Aberfoyle Junction. So he worked on that starting about 1975. I first saw it in 1976, in fact, and built most of the fine passenger equipment there. He started the Algoma River narrow gauge layout, this one, in 1987 after finding a house with a suitable basement, and continued working on and operating with a regular crew until about 2020 when it was dismantled. And some of us, including Jeff and Jerry, were at that dismantling. He continued to model with a small ON30. He continues to model with a small ON30 switching layout and is working on detailing some tank cars this week. That's the project. So here we go. There he is, as we often saw him. So here's Algoma City Station, and now almost all the buildings on this layout are scratch built, and he kept to a color scheme with this blue trim. And so after this dismantling, a lot of these structures and rolling stock went to other layouts. And so every now and then I'm at somebody's house and I spot one of these blue trim buildings and I go, oh, that's got to be from the Algoma River. There's the depot at the bottom, looking across the yards. There's an ore train. There's the ore dock over there on the left, which fed a standard gauge dummy track underneath it, so that the ore trains would come into town here and be switched over onto that ore dock to dump their loads. So obviously we're looking at empties here. He did have loads that he would lift in and out of the cars. Here's the same scene, but seen from down low, and you can see some of the dual gauge track. So that dual gauge goes over there toward the interchange between the standard gauge and dual gauge. Behind the coaling tower, you can see a standard gauge box car. And there's a transfer shed in there as well. And here's a standard gauge reefer, in fact, over on the other side of the station. Yeah, some of these pictures have weird color balances, and I tried to even them out, but some of them were shot quite a while ago. They're all digital, but you know, I started off with a you know, like whatever it was, a 3 megapixel camera with not very good color balance. So this is part of our history, our photographic history, these different things. So here's the Algoma City panel. It's actually curved, but on the panel, he depicted it straight. Now you'll see these switches. This is DC, not power on board, not DCC. Craig never went there. It's actually interesting tonight hearing about you know, 3D printing and power on board, because then we're taking a look back at technology basically of the 80s here, 80s and 90s. These switches there for the power go to the 4 remote handheld throttles, which are actually Aristocraft. Speaking of power on board, I used to use these Aristocraft handheld radio throttles in my garden railway with battery on board. But Craig was using them to control captive DC power supplies underneath the layout. But you could walk around with these things and you wouldn't have sound, but you'd have directional and speed control. And now if you throw it over to local, you get one of these, and there's 2 of them in this place. Oh, and actually the one on the right, that knob on the right is for the turntable bridge. The one on the left is a local cab, and it's one of those old style rheostats that you turn to the left and the engine goes to the left. You turn to the right, the engine goes to the right. So very direct, very simple, kind of bulletproof for new operators to get the hang of. Here's a close-up of that ore dock with some of the lights. The layout was fully lit, and we'll get to some nighttime shots later on, but it is quite spectacular. At night, you had, if you're operating the layout, he would equip you with a little uncoupling tool with a flashlight strapped to it so that you could see what you were doing in the dark. And it got pretty dark. Here's another dramatic shot of that ore dock. These climaxes he used on the branch line going up to the mine. He had several of these Bachmann climaxes regauged to ON3. And this is the turntable area. Here's looking, you can see the turntable at the bottom, and we're looking across. You can see a bit of the standard gauge track, and that's Alendale, the other terminal in the distance. And that red sweater, by the way, belongs to Trevor Marshall. I don't know if a lot of you know Trevor, but a well-known railroad author, and he moved from the Toronto area out to, he now lives in Saskatoon. Yeah, so leaving Algoma City, we go underneath the mining area. So Craig very cleverly, realizing that he had a fair bit of hidden track, cut these windows into the layouts. And not only could you just see the train, but he would detail them. There should be a close-up. Anyway, I guess later on we'll get a close-up of one of these areas. It's pretty neat how he would evoke a scene. So this is a little cottage area in there, which is a flag stop. Sometimes the passenger trains would stop and sometimes they wouldn't. They were heading out now. We're on the low track and there's a train going by on the upper track. But the lower track goes through this town called Canyon View with a few industries. And then we arrive at Maple. So we came around Canyon View and I don't know, I'll get my cursor here. This tunnel comes out from Canyon View and the main line comes around this huge curve, which is also a 4% grade, 36-inch radius. Those are the standards of the layout. And a switching branch comes in here. This is the no-name mine. Hey, Keith, maybe you can tell me if this is the mine on your layout. I think it is.
Yeah, David, it's the Ma Bell mine.
Ma
yes,
Bell
it is.
mine.
It's on my layout.
Yeah, I think it was modeled after Harry Brunk. Or yeah, it was. There was a Gazette article that he patterned that after. Anyway, the freight trains would come in here. There's no passenger station in the town of Maple. The station was on the main line circling around. So here we go. Here's a shot of Maple and some of the industries and a nighttime shot. This is how dark it got. Here we go, looking the other way. A freight train has backed in and is doing switching for some of the several industries in there. I always like this car, the R, it's like the pirate car, the Algoma River Railway. Here's looking the other way again, and there's some ore cars at that mine that Keith has, and you can actually see in this picture the removable loads. Here's a building. This, I think, is a York building. It's called the Rustic Factory. But when Craig built it, first it had this name, the Ma Bell Shaft, which is, I don't know if anybody else feels this way about the Bell Telephone Company, but there's often ill feelings about the way you're built with them. So that's why it's called the Ma Bell Shaft. Then he renamed it to the P&L Moffat Limited. Pete Moffat being a local modeler of narrow gauge and other things in the Hamilton, Niagara area. Here we come. Now we're going up the grade around the big curve with the town of Maple down in the valley below. And here's that same curve a little further. These phone booths are everywhere on the layout. One of the hallmarks, and also with the blue trim, unmistakable. So here we are coming around the curve. We're coming in on the left to the upper town of Northern Junction. And you can see down here at the lower level, the actual bit of the station, the passenger station for Maple. So here we come. Here is Northern Junction with a meet taking place, a passenger train coming inward and a freight train holding the siding. So here we are, I'm just going to show you the layout plan again just to get oriented. So we just came around the big curve and we are heading up into this area here. So you can see that there's a lot of activity. This is a halfway point on the railway. And Craig said that at one point he tried running two-way freights, like one from each end, meeting at Maple Junction. But in the end, I think they went with way freights running the whole length. I guess it was just a little more practical. There's also a Y there for turning trains coming down from Northern Mines. Actually, in the video, I just posted a video on YouTube. If you look for Craig Webb Algoma River Railway, you'll see a video that Craig allowed me to post. That was done in 2002. And you can see a passenger run, and which I didn't know existed, coming down. It's just a rail car that looks like it's done from those LGB Nomi kits, you know, those little plastic models, but he's taken several of them, made a clever little rail car. It's in the video. I don't have a picture of it. So, whoops, there we go. Here's a close-up of some of the northern junction. You can see the Y heading off there in the distance on the left. And here's an overall shot. And again, you can see that Y with the station in the crook of the Y like that. Here's looking sideways. The Y is disappearing into this place here. And so here's a little mini scene of just a couple of people talking on the platform here. And there's a picnic area up here, which is a destination for this picnic train. So I have the picnic area on my layout now. It just sort of actually, Jeff probably knows a bit about this story. It was like one of those leftover bits, and we had a meet, and various bits and pieces of the layout were being distributed to members of our group. And I think this was sort of a leftover, and I ended up with it on the front seat of my car. But I found a home for it now, which is always good. I also have, actually coincidentally, talking about this hotel. So the tail track for that Y, in order to turn a full-length train, comes out into over the laundry tubs into the next room. So this is the utility area at the back of the basement. And here we're about to leave Northern Junction. And some of you might recognize that building on the left as being a Revell, either an engine house or bakery, or what was the other one? Printing plant, I think, newspaper plant back from the 50s or 60s. There it is again. Here we are leaving town. There's a coal yard. I don't see the picnic area in this one. I wonder if it was taken before. So then we're coming back on the upper level here. So we can, where this train is being shown, and you can see a bit more of the Canyon View station on the lower level below. That hotel used to occupy that, that space above the train up there against the wall. So structures got moved around, and things changed quite regularly. And if you visited the layout, you know, a period of a few months or years, you keep noticing that things were a little different. Always improvements. So here we are on the middle level. That's the mining branch going up above on a 5% grade. So, but we're on the middle level. And here we are, coming through the middle level in that same window. So now we're up at Morrison Landing. The bottom one is called Springgate Grove. And we arrive at Alendale, which is the terminal. Alendale is on Lake, and I'm not even sure how to pronounce this, Namigos, I think. And I had to look up Namigos on Google Maps, and it is indeed a lake north of Sault Ste. Marie, northeast of Lake Superior. So if you know where the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is, you just head north from there, and you eventually get to a bunch of lakes, and it's a very scenic area, and well known for another tourist train on the Algoma Central Railway, the standard gauge actual railway. So here we have the station. There we have just a scene looking. There's the station on the right, and that sort of rock rubble kind of fill that he's got holding the tracks up. So here we are. Now we've come down. Here's Alendale here. So we were just looking at these scenes along the water here. And you'll see in the next view, here's a car float and end of track over here, and sort of a switchback to the industries and to the turntable and engine servicing down there. So here's Larry, our friend Larry, who's online, I think, right now. And he's taking the picnic train out, probably going to turn it at on the Y at Northern Junction. Here's that steamship. This is actually a model of the Seguin. I had to check that. I wasn't sure if it actually was a model of the Seguin or just a similar steamboat, but it's very close. And here it is, labeled. Here's the same model, labeled as the Seguin on the Aberfoyle and St. Jacobs Display Railway, the standard gauge O-scale display railway, which is also now dismantled as of December. We miss it a lot. It was a fantastic layout. Actually, one of the best overall display layouts I've ever seen. Yeah, so that was, Craig was instrumental in getting this layout off the ground. So now we're back at the Algoma River. We're looking at the car float area with this sort of adjustable apron here. And there's one of the car floats. I think he had several. He could flip cars in and off. Oh, so what we're seeing here is 4 loaded ore cars that came in. So I think the story is that there's mines elsewhere on the lake that ship ore, and they come in on the boat, and they got transferred down the line to the ore unloading down at Algoma City. Here we are. There's some empties now in this shot. There's the steamboat, and look at the building flats at the back of the Alendale. And a view of one of these control panels. So here's the local cab. And again, you get, oh, it's only 1, 2, 3. I just noticed that. He doesn't have 4 other cabs on this one. But if you flip it to local, you get this rheostat here with center off. There we go. Now here's the same kind of scene, but at night. It's a handheld shot, so the focus isn't great, but that's what I got. Gives you an idea of what it was like. It was very spectacular when the lights went down. And it was an automated system too. Here's Alendale, and of course, you'll recognize that coaling pocket on the side as being East Broadtop prototype. And I also noticed in this picture that that's an East Broadtop boxcar there, one of their big steel outside braced boxcars. Kind of a little bit bigger than the Colorado cars. Here's the end of track. This actually bulged into his workshop a little bit, I think, just to get a little bit more car storage or runaround storage. So now we're flipping over. We've done one end to the other, and we're going to examine the Northern Mines branch. That engine is coming down the 5% grade that I mentioned earlier, and pretty spectacular. It's grueling, to say the least. Craig had several of these box cabs of various kinds, and although eventually they got replaced by Bachmann Climaxes, but they were built on, I think Jerry has one, and I think it's an Atlas drive under there. It's funny because, of course, Craig would have converted it to On3, and I think that probably Jerry's going to convert it back to HO standards. I guess that's life. Here we are. This is an amazing mine. I think this was portable, and he might have won some prizes on that, but I'm not absolutely sure where or when. But it's a beautiful model. Here we're looking at the panel at Northern Mines, and you can sort of see the track layout here. There's no actual Y or turntable up here. Again, there's the rheostat. And now here we go. This is looking the other way, back toward the rest of the layout, with another one of these cutouts. But this is what those Aristocraft radio control throttles look like. So not tethered, truly radio control. You just walk around and control your train. And there's 4 of those, and each one of them has a sort of a logo on them and can hook on like that. So here we are. There's that cutout underneath, and some of the detail scenery. Here's a close-up of some of the scenery. I really like this scene up at Northern Mines. Great signs on this building here. Dependable footwear. Another close-up. Lots of little scenes that he would cook up. This is another one. This is actually down at Canyon View. You can see that station, that label up on the right. Okay, so now we've done the line. Basically, this is a what is sometimes called a string diagram, or basically a schedule map in a way. So what you've got here, and some of you may be familiar with this, is time is going left to right. So you've got 0 to 24 hours. And the railroad, here's Algoma, the lower terminal, and you go along through Canyon View, Maple, Northern Junction, Morrison, another little flag stop, and then Alendale is the terminus. Now down here, he's got the Northern Mines branch as a separate little entity at the bottom of the thing. But you can sort of see how he's incorporated the red lines. They go up and down, basically probably one train, one locomotive going back and forth, serving, leaving Northern Junction, going back to Northern Mines, coming back, going back several times in a day. It's also, he's reflected that as a connection to this train here. So this, I think that these are passenger trains. These green and blue lines. I think that the green one, and I wasn't able to show him this, but I described it over the phone, and I'm pretty sure my interpretation is right. So the passenger train would come up this way, and later on at 9:30 would head down this way. Each of these little horizontal places is a stop, so that the train would come. That indicates how long it takes to get from here to there. You stop for a little bit, and then go down to the next one. Stop, stop, stop. And you have a nice long stop here because you're meeting this other train heading the other way, which has come from Northern Mines here, come to Northern Junction. Here it is coming into Northern Junction. And in this case, it's probably bringing ore all the way down to Algoma City, the ultimate destination for the ore. The way freights are not on this. There's this yellow line, I think, is an ore train turn that just serves the Maple mine. There's that mine that Keith has. It was at Maple. So this train is coming down here with some empties and bringing loads back to Algoma. This mysterious arrow here is actually when the way freight starts. Now the way freight, of course, being who knows what's going to happen at any of the stations with, random pickups and drop-offs. But he did have a card order system similar to the old Doug Smith system, if you're familiar with that. So the way freight would take off and just do whatever it had to do. At Maple, it would stop. At Northern Junction, it would stop. Can't remember where Morrison is, but anyway, it would do all this work and then tie up at Alendale. And then this indicates the way freight returning back down to Algoma, doing the same kind of thing, taking all day if they need it. So a fascinating way of looking at your railroad. And what I realized, that's a great lesson with a diagram like this, is that you don't have to always have all the trains running over your entire layout. So that he's got like a short turn, doing the ore train, another short turn doing this, but also a longer journey for this ore train coming from all the way to the mines to down here. Really interesting when you get to this stage of your layout, that you can sort of conceptualize like this. I've tried to do that on my layout with a couple of hidden tracks. Like they're basically just single track staging, but it enables me to have some more destinations than just the straight main line that I've got. So here's there's an instruction sheet for novice operators, and he was very generous in allowing people to come in and just do a couple of sessions with the regular crew at times. You can see there's 3 card pockets here for the freight cars. And so there was, how did this go? Load, hold, and pickup, or, basically inbound, hold, and pickup, so that a crew would move them to the right, basically. And here's a holder. I think this must be the master holder for all of the destination cards that are clip onto the freight car cards. And here he is. That's Craig again, doing some switching. And in this view, you can see standard gauge passenger car. And of course, I think I might have mentioned before, Craig built all but one, I think, of the passenger cars at standard gauge on the Aberfoyle Junction layout, which are amazing. I mean, they are fully lit, and when they do a nighttime sequence, seeing a whole standard gauge lit passenger train full length is quite something. He also told me he has 60 standard gauge passenger cars squirreled away somewhere, which I didn't know. Holy cow, that's really a lot. Maybe that includes the Aberfoyle Junction ones. And actually, up here we have Brad. Jeff, sorry, Brad is somewhere else. This is Jeff, who just gave the power on board. So there he is looking on, rather bemusedly. Here's another member. This is Stan Parsons, another member of our group. Okay, speaking of passenger equipment, of course, the Algoma River had some very nice passenger equipment. Here's I'm not sure what the prototype is. He managed to find some of the early like DAR plans, or who were those guys in, were drawing plans in the 50s of a narrow gauge. And I remember getting a catalog of this kind of thing, but included some of the lines in the east. So I suspect that this is an eastern prototype express car. That's an East Broadtop car, and that is not a scratch built car, but it's from I think it's Friends of the East Broadtop kit, a resin kit. And I have one of those kits too. And the roof is an incredibly heavy resin casting. It's a one-piece resin casting. And I said, Craig, like, how did you deal with that? Because the car would be incredibly top heavy and very awkward to work with. And he said, well, I just built a new roof, period. Very simple. Sounds so easy. But that's a very long car. But I love the board and batten sides. So those are ex-Boston Revere Beach and Lynn cars. And of course, they're still, a couple of them are still in the East Broadtop. This one, I think, is a Colorado prototype. It might be CNS, I'm not sure. But full interior, here we see the interior, Combine 210. What's going on there? I really like this car. This is a bit of freelance in that it's an RPO Express, but it's also got this chili line little bay window there, which is a nice touch. And there's a figure on the back. He had figures just everywhere. And this is a nice car. This is the Red Mountain Combine. I think this appeared as plans in either a Fine Lines or a Slim Gauge News early on, maybe even early Gazette in the first couple of years. And this is another one, also a Silverton car. This is on my layout now, actually. That's my layout. Really interesting prototype. And the freight car trucks are prototypical. The prototype did not have passenger car trucks. Here's one of his several tail end cars, Manitouwadge. Manitou is sort of a Huron kind of word. I'm not sure what Manitouwadge means, but as in Manitoulin Island, which is a big island in Lake Huron in Ontario. And this is on Art Midwood's layout. So here we have some more equipment that got around. And of course, this layout is also a fallen flag now, from several years ago. But here's 3 Algoma River cars up behind, what is that, 318 maybe or something, heading up the grade out of Rico on Art Midwood's layout. And that's the end for now. So there's a nice view looking back from Northern Mines toward the rest of the layout.
I'm looking at the list of questions on here. There are a few. My friend here in Seattle, Burr Stewart, said, was his standard gauge the 5-foot 2-rail O-scale standard? Hopefully that question makes sense.
What is the exact question? Oh, you mean, 5 foot. Did I mention that it was 5 foot? Well, that's a long time thing. Like Proto 48 is actually 1/4 inch scale track to 4.5. But historically, most American O-scale modeling is to actually 5 foot gauge. In other words, it's 1.25 inch gauge.
Yeah.
So, and in the UK, I think it's a little closer because you've got 1.25 inch gauge, but you've got 7 millimeter. Now, which is even weirder to me. Like, why do the British have a 7 millimeter as their, you know?
Tell me about. I have a British fine scale locomotive, 7 millimeters the foot, and it's like 0.5 millimeter wrong to run on a fine scale American. I don't get me started on that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, but almost all North American O-scale layouts are the wrong gauge, including some very nice ones.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. And I actually commented several times in there, and I think somebody else did. I love those windows, like the shadow box effect he had underneath heading staging. I saw several of those. Those are really cool.
Yeah, he had 3 of them. And sort of 3.5, because there's another one that wasn't even a window. It was sort of where the track kind of just scenic under another scene, you know, without even a window there. That is really cool. Yeah.
Yep. And Sid, another of our Northwest guys here, he said he loved the string diagram, the scheduling chart, and you know I use those a lot. I use them professionally in the past. That was really made it really easy to understand visually here how the railroad actually operated. That was cool.
Exactly.
Dave said, I think Craig has built over. Was that you, Dave, or another Dave? He said, I think Craig has built over 80 passenger cars total, standard and narrow gauge.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And Dave Adams says, wonderful presentation and layout. And I think I would reflect that in the enthusiasm you presented it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Bill Hobbs says, thanks. Nice work on the structures and cars, especially. And Jim Brown, another of our Northwest guys, he's Canadian, but we don't hold that against him. Great presentation. Thanks so much for sharing this with us, David. Cool.
Yeah.
Yep. And Keith Stamper says Craig's layout was featured in the magazine Great Model Railroads, GMR. I didn't know that. I didn't see that.
Oh, yes, that's right. Well, that's where I got that track plan, was Great Model Railroads 2003. Great article.
Yep.
And let's see now.
And they have great graphic designers who do the track plan too. That's good, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Actually, it says drawn by Craig. But just a minute, I can check that. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, while you look at that, Dave says again, I think Craig told us that the school car was number 84.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I think he told us one of our meets, David.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's one of his latest projects just a couple of months ago. And that car still exists. Where is that? In up near Goderich, right? It's on display. On the way to Goderich. You have to look for it. It's not marked, so you can drive through the little town that it's in. His name I forget. But you know, it took us quite a while to find it. But there was somebody on duty there, you know, a volunteer, and took us through the car, and fascinating. And yeah, Craig modeled that. It's a school car that used to run in Northern Ontario, and would be moved by the railway every week or 2 weeks to a new location for the teacher to accommodate the kids.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Craig. Craig, the town is Clinton, Ontario.
Clinton, thanks. Excellent.
Cool. And the final one on the list, which is actually kind of inspirational, is from Keith Stamper. I think you've heard of him. He said, Craig is the only member of our narrow gauge group. I assume that's your local group up there, Keith, up in the far north. With an MMR designation, and Keith said that has encouraged him to participate, which is great. Yeah.
That's right. He never made a big deal out of that. In fact, it was I think it was reading one of the articles that it sort of mentioned that as a by the way, you know, like, and it's really quite a big deal. as Keith knows, because we've been watching Keith jumping through hoops to get his MMR. And, you know, there's not very many people who endure that, you know, like, holy cow.